So today we're going to learn lesson 5.2, operations on fractions. Let's start. Multiplying fractions. When multiplying two or more fractions together, you can simply multiply the numerators and then multiply the denominators. Sometimes you will then need to simplify your answer. It can be faster to cancel the fractions before you multiply. Work example 3. Calculate 3/4 plus 2/7. 5/7 times 3. 3/8 are 4.5. So multiply the numerators to get the new numerator value. Then do the same with the denominators. Then express the fraction in its simplest form. Notice that you can also cancel before multiplying. Divide the denominator of the first fraction and the numerator of the second fraction by 2. And then you just multiply each other. So 5/7 times 3 is 15/7. 15 and 7 do not have a common factor other than 1, so cannot be simplified. 3/8 are 4.5. Here you have a mixed number, 4.5. This needs to be changed to an improper fraction, sometimes called a top-heavy fraction, which is a fraction where the numerator is larger than the denominator. This allows you to complete the multiplication. So you just multiply by each other. And you also turn the mixed number into an improper fraction. Exercise 5.2. Evaluate each of the following. 2/3 times 5/9. 1/2 times 3/7. 1/4 times 8/9. 2/7 times 14/16. 128 times 256 500. 1 1/3 times 2/7. 2 2/7 times 7/8. 4/5 of 3 2/7. 1 1/3 of 24. 5 1/2 of 7 1/4. 8 8/9 times 20 1/4. 7 2/3 times 10 1/2. Adding and subtracting fractions. You can only add or subtract fractions that are the same type. In other words, they must have the same denominator. This is called a common denominator. You must use what you know about equivalent fractions to help you make sure that fractions have a common denominator. The following work example shows how you can use the lowest common multiple of both denominators as the common denominator. Work example 4. Write each of the following as a single fraction in its simplest form. So you have to find the common denominator. The lowest common multiple of 2 and 4 is 4. Use this as the common denominator and find the equivalent fractions. Then add the numerators. Now, find the common denominator. The lowest common multiple of 4 and 6 is 12. Use this as the common denominator and find the equivalent fractions. Add the numerators. Change an improper fraction into a mixed number. Change mixed numbers into improper fractions to make them easier to handle. The lowest common multiple of 4 and 7 is 28, so this is the common denominator. Find the equivalent fractions. Subtract one numerator from the other. Change an improper fraction into a mixed number. Egyptian fractions. An Egyptian fraction is the sum of any number of different fractions with different denominators, each with a numerator as 1. For example, a half and a third is the Egyptian fraction that represents 5/6. Ancient Egyptians used to represent single fractions in this way, but in modern times we tend to prefer the single fraction that results from finding a common denominator. Exercise 5.3. Evaluate the following. A third plus a third. 3/7 plus 2/7. 5/8 minus 3/8. 5/9 plus 8/9. 6 plus a fifth. 2/3 minus 5/8. 2 and 5/8 minus 1 and 3/4. 5 and 1/8 minus 3 and 1/16. Question 2. 4 minus 2/3. 6 plus 5 11. 11 plus 7 and a quarter. 11 minus 7 and a quarter. 3 and a half minus 4 and a third. 5 and a fourth plus 3 and a 16th plus 4 and 3/8. 5 and 1/8 minus 3 and 1/16 plus 4 and 3/4. 1 and a third plus 2 and 2/5 minus 1 and 1/4. 3/7 plus 2/3 times 14/8. 3 and a half minus 2 and a quarter times 4 and a third. 3 and a 6 times 1 and a half, 7 and 3/4. 2 and a quarter minus 3 and a third plus 4 and a fifth. Question 3. Find Egyptian fractions for each of the following. 3/4. 2/3. 5/8. 3/16. Dividing fractions. Before describing how to divide two fractions, the reciprocal needs to be introduced. The reciprocal of any fraction can be obtained by swapping the numerator and the denominator. So the reciprocal of 3/4 is 4/3, and the reciprocal of 7/2 is 2/7. Also, the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2/1, or just 2, and the reciprocal of 5 is 1/5. If any fraction is multiplied by its reciprocal, then the result is always 1. For example, a third times 3/1 equals 1. 3/8 times 8/3 equals 1. And AB times B/8 equals 1. To divide one fraction by another fraction, you simply multiply the first fraction by the reciprocal of the second. Look at the example below. AB divided by CD equals this. Now multiply both the numerator and denominator by BD and cancel. So it equals to AD over BC, or AB times DC. Work example 5. Evaluate each of the following. 3/4 divided by 1/2. 1 and 3/4 divided by 2 and 1/3. 5/8 divided by 2. 6/7 divided by 3. So you multiply the reciprocal of 1/2. Use the rules you have learned about multiplying fractions. Convert the mixed fractions into improper fractions. Now you multiply the reciprocal of 7/3. Write 2 as an improper fraction. multiplied by the reciprocal of 2 once. And you just do the same for D. Exercise 5.4. Evaluate each of the following. A seventh divided by a third. 2/5 divided by 3/7. 4/9 divided by 7. 10/11 divided by 5. 4 1/5 divided by a seventh. 3 1/5 divided by 5 2/3. 7 7/8 divided by 5 1/2. 3 1/4 divided by 3 1/2. And you need to evaluate. Open bracket, 2 1/3 minus 1 2/5, close bracket, divided by 1 1/3. And 2 1/3 minus 1 2/5 divided by 1 1/3. Fractions with decimals. Sometimes you will find that either the numerator or the denominator, or even both, are not whole numbers. To express these fractions in their simplest forms, you need to make sure that both the numerator and denominator are converted into an integer by finding an equivalent fraction. Check the equivalent fraction has been simplified. With example 6, simplify each of the following fractions. 0.1 thirds, 1.3 2.4, 36 0.12, 0.12. So you multiply 0.1 by 10 to convert 0.1 into an integer. To make sure the fraction is equivalent, you need to do the same to the numerator and the denominator. So multiply 3 by 10 as well. Multiply both the numerator and denominator by 10 to get integers. 13 and 24 do not have a highest common factor other than 1, so cannot be simplified. Multiply 0.12 by 100 to produce an integer. Remember to also multiply the numerator by 100, so the fraction is equivalent. The final fraction can be simplified by canceling. Exercise 5.5. Simplify each of the following fractions. 0.3 12, 0.4 0.5, 6 0.7, 0.7 0.14, 36 1.5, 0.3 times 5 and 5 12, 0.4 times 1.5 1.6, 2.8 0.7 times 1.44 0.6. Further calculations with fractions. You can use fractions to help you solve problems. Remember, for example, that 2/3 equals 2 1/3. 2 times a third. And that, although this may seem trivial, a simple fact can help you to solve problems easily. Work example 7. Suppose that 2/5 of the students in a school are girls. If the school has 600 students, how many girls are there? So 2/5 of 600 equals 2/5 times 600, or equals to 240 girls. Worked example 8. Now imagine that 2/5 of the students in another school are boys, and that there are 360 boys. How many students are there in the whole school? So 2/5 of the total is 360. So 1/5 of the total must be half of this, 180. This means that 5/5 of the population, that is all of it, is 5 times 180 equals 900 students in total. Exercise 5.6. 3/4 of the people at an auction bought an item. If there are 120 people at the auction, how many bought something? An essay contains 420 sentences. 80 of these sentences contain typing errors. What fraction, given in its simplest form, of the sentences contain errors? "28 is 2/7 of which number?" If 3/5 of the people in a theater buy a snack during the interval, and of those who buy a snack, 5/7 buy ice cream, what fractions of the people in the theater buy ice cream? Andrew, Bashir, and Candy are trying to save money for a birthday party. If Andrew saved 1/4 of the total needed, Bashir saved 2/5, and Candy saved 1/10, what fraction of the cost of the party is left to pay? Joseph needs 6.5 cups of cooked rice for a recipe of nasi goreng. If 2 cups of uncooked rice with 2.5 cups of water make 4.25 cups of cooked rice, how many cups of uncooked rice does Joseph need for this recipe? How much water should he add? So, that's the end of this video. Thank you and goodbye.